This is the Selmer Treble and Bass 100 SV. Don't know how long it's been left alone like this, but it's not in very good shape. I had the head shell separately, but I pulled this because it weighed like 200 pounds with both of them on it. It just doesn't make any sense. But here's the first cool feature of this. So you see this knob right here? It's hard to do with one hand, but you just take that little plug out and you plug it in whichever voltage you want. You want 115, 125, 210, 230, or 250. I feel like they predicted this one accurately because the wall voltage in my house is actually like 125, so I'll just slot it in here. It's hard to see what I'm doing on the camera, but so that's a really cool feature that I really like. But I mean, this is a good switchable transformer. It's just a great idea, especially from, when did they make this? 1970 maybe. But anyway, I think it's cool that they kind of predicted that wall voltages would rise, because I mean, back then 110 was what you'd typically get. Now we're getting to 125, so you know, optimal performance and all that stuff. Here's the back plate where all the tubes go. There is the impedance selector, which does kind of the same thing. The amp is pretty precarious, so I'm being real careful with this. But let's see. No, I'll do 8 ohms because 8 ohms is pretty standard. Outputs power consumption 100 watts, which I very much doubt. But this I can't tell because it doesn't really seem to move. But I think, well, I don't know what it is really. Maybe like a ground adjuster, ground loop adjuster, I'm not really sure. But anyway, this is the back panel. And from what I've done on my capacitance meter and ESR meter, this one is wildly out of spec, so that's going for sure. All of these are about normal. This one right here feels, I think it's running a 55 when it's supposed to be 47, so I may switch that one out, but that one's a 47, that one's like a 49, so I'm going to keep those. The rest of them, I mean, these green caps right here are completely useless. That white one right there, I don't really trust because it looks like half of it is melted, and even though it's reading fine on the meters, I don't want to risk it. As for the rest of this, I mean, it looks like a pretty well done amp with very few modifications. I think that just about the only modification that could have been done is this one, and I don't recognize this logo, so I don't know if this is original. Oh no, it's March of 1970. This has been with the amp. This amp is like entirely untouched. As for these can caps, they are all pretty much completely useless. Just wildly out of spec. I think this one was reading 360 microfarads, which, I mean, just do, and get some new filter caps wired up, get all the wiring up to spec. From my inspections in this area and the eyelet board, just about everything seems to be fine besides, you know, obviously this one, which is about 30 farads too high, and I just don't want to deal with that. All the resistors are for the most part good. There are a couple that I might pull just because they're a little too out of spec. And so I've been racking my brain for the past few minutes trying to figure out what's happening, because I have the power cable all connected, wiring over here, you know, put electrical tape around the bare wires so that there's nothing can get in there. I just need to install the something to hold it in place, but I'll do that soon. But anyway, so what I do is press the power button, flicks on for like 1/10 of a second, and goes off. And I was so incredibly confused because I'd done all the proper steps. I'd, you know, disconnected the transformer wires from the diodes to make sure that there would be no issues there, and there weren't. And so I was testing the transformer leads too, because I thought, you know, if the power light is broken, maybe the transformer will still work, and nope, it didn't. I was incredibly confused. And then I remembered something. Here's the fuse. I had taken extra care to make sure everything was working. Then I remembered I took out the fuse yesterday because I don't remember why. But anyway, fuse is going back together, and yep, I'll stick that back in and see what happens. Fuse back in place. Let's, oh shoot, here you go. All the way in until it's tight. Now let's see what happens. I'm gonna hope this doesn't kill me. Same thing. But I'll go test the transformer and we will see. Well, the transformer absolutely does work. 100% certain about that, because I set my multimeter to the wrong setting and a spark jumped from there to ground, and now this is the state of my fuse. Can I get a good picture on that? Come on, there you go. Can't be this hard. Anyway, I don't know if you can see that. There we go. And it blew. So, this was not a fault of the amp blowing fuses. This was a fault of me being an idiot. So, I'm going to put a new fuse in there and see if I can measure it properly. See you guys soon. Okay, this time the fuse did not blow, and the power transformer is definitely working. Because my meter was really freaking out. I think I'm going to have to get a new multimeter because that one is just not cutting it for this high voltage measuring. But at least the power transformer works. That would be the most costly part to replace, and that is the one which I would least like to replace if I had a chance, if I have the option. So power transformer is guaranteed good. I will have to go check the heater voltages, but I don't think that should be an issue. And I'm going to wait to get new caps before I do that, or at least I'm going to bring it up on the Variac. You know, actually, I'll bring it up on the Variac tonight and get those results. Just, you know, reform the caps, I guess, a little bit. But the main experiment here is seeing whether the power transformer is scaling properly. So I will get those results as soon as I plug in the Variac. So great news, everybody. I have the Variac at 10 volts, which is, I mean, it inputs 110 volts AC, and the wall voltage is close to 125. So this is just a general approximation, but this would be about 12.5 right now. So what I'm getting from here when I have it plugged in is like 20 volts AC. So I mean 20 times 12, you get about 240. And I'm sorry, it's kind of late. You get 240 volts AC, and I'm only plugging it into one side. I'm not plugging into both and measuring it. So one half of that, because one is essentially positive 240 and there's negative 240, we get around 480. And I mean, we take a little bit off to account for the obvious higher wall voltage, so we're around 450, 460, which is where the power transformer is supposed to be according to the specs. Needless to say, I'm overjoyed because that power transformer alone is worth like $200. And I'm just absolutely thrilled that it's working, and thrilled that it's working perfectly, even with this system. So the system does work. So I will get you more updates tomorrow when I continue work on this. And I am just so thrilled that it went through. Whoo! Power cord redoing with not enough lead to get to the power switch. And then this. And blowing the fuse, all that stuff. I mean, little mini adventure here. But power transformer is working, and I will continue the troubleshooting tomorrow. See you guys later. So I have just been to order the parts, and power transformer is working perfectly, as I mentioned before. I actually got the math wrong on that one. It's a little bit higher, but that's because it's an AC voltage and not DC. Once it goes to DC, it'll be a lower after it's rectified by the diodes. But so these can capacitors all around here. So this is kind of embarrassing, but I actually can't get them out of the chassis. I think, because I see this like shiny residue around these ones, I think that someone has super glued the bolts, the nuts onto there. So yeah, I have tried for like 20 minutes to get this out with a screwdriver and all that stuff and pliers, and I can't do it. So I'm thinking that I'm just going to put like electrical tape over all the back of this. I'm gonna desolder all the resistors and components and clip the leads of the can capacitors all the way to the end. And yeah, and then I think I'll just tape this over. I've bought some terminal boards, so I'm gonna put down some terminal boards. I may move the diode rectification over to this corner right over here because I may need more room for the filter caps. So I think that I'm going to be able to get 100 microfarads at 500 volts filter caps, but we will see. If absolutely necessary, I may get like, because I need 4 of them, and they will probably be very expensive. So my other option is getting 8 220 microfarad caps and wiring them so I can half the capacitance and double the voltage. So, there's something to consider too, but I'll figure it out when I come to it. But I'm hoping to get in 4 filter capacitors in this area, and I'll update you once the parts come. Hey, so I got code a little while ago, and all the parts came yesterday, so I started working on it a little bit. As for changes so far, I replaced the 500 picofarad cap right there with, it was originally a, shoot, I don't know where it is, but it was originally a LCR cap like the one in my other Selmer, which I'll do a video on later. It's right here, the little LCR cap right there. Yep. With the 2 plastic edges. I wasn't entirely sure what it is, but I charted the circuit position and figured it was the 500 picofarad. I think what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to try to leave all the yellow caps still in. I tested both the film caps and they tested just fine. I'm going to replace that white one right there, gray white one, because I just don't trust it. It looks to be a little melted. I replaced this, which was a 55 microfarad 100 volt cap. It was originally a 55, but I changed it to a 50. I'm just going to leave all of the diodes in unless it becomes evident that they need to be changed. I've just got some tentative the terminal strip placement, and what I've done with these caps is I don't really trust that they'll do their job filtering. So I've just bent the leads down into the chassis so that they won't impede any wiring I do later. And I'm just going to set up terminal strips along here, run down along this way. Maybe I'll do, I don't know, something like one here, and then I'll do it in an angle and do it up there to get 2 in a row. And then I will just, follow the circuit diagram from there. But I just need to fit in 2 rows of filter caps and 2 rows of resistors. As for the other wiring, I think I'm going to go in here changing as little as possible. I have changed the caps on the tubes, cathode bypass, I think. So what actually happened is these are 25 at 50 volts, and I ordered these from Mod Caps, which are kind of like I don't know, cheap replacements that I think are a little bit better than IC caps. But I ordered these from Mod, and I ordered 4 of them. I have two I need to use for separate amps, so I kept those separate. But I also ordered some 8 at 150 volts for a bias circuit for a Bandmaster. And I also ordered those from Mod, and I didn't label them properly, so I put one of the 8 at 150 into the slot where the 25 at 50 would be, and I'm kind of embarrassed about that. I'm gonna have to fasten some leads onto that to get it at the required length now, and I'm kind of angry that that happened. I think I might change out this cement cap right here because it's kind of, I don't know, it just looks a bit iffy. And I'm also going to replace the the cement resistor, and I'm also going to replace some of the resistors on the tubes just because I don't trust them as much. And like the blue resistors right there, I just don't trust in the slightest, so I'm just going to take those out and redo them. I'm going to get this cap right here. I think it's a, I don't know what it is. I don't know what the official term for that cap is. I think it's a polypropylene, but I'm going to replace that one too. Okay, and here's the amp now at my new bench setup. So what I've done is I have removed all the components except for that resistor right there, but I'll get that soon, and bent down the leads to those things, and I've created this. This is a exact replica of the filtering supply with 2 100 UF 300 volt capacitors running in series to get it a 50 at 700 volt power supply on both sides with these resistors attached. This is an exact replica, and I'm hoping to fit it in somewhere right there. But I've just got to remove a couple more wires. So it's going to go right there where there's a bunch of empty holes. But first I'm going to have to remove this, just, bend it out to the side. These 2 wires I'm also going to just remove temporarily and then put back later under the power supply. And I think that yellow wire can actually stay there. I mean, the orange wire can stay there. That should be fine. And I'm just going to, temporarily remove a bunch of those wires and put them back together. And now, so this is the section which I really don't understand what the purpose is for, but I don't want to remove it because I think it's integral. These are 2 32 microfarads with the ground on the filter caps. We have 2 of them. I have done essentially the same thing with 1 ground and 2 different things on these 2 sides of this terminal strip. And I'm going to essentially do it, I'll just put it in right there where that's supposed to go. And I'll just run it like I'm running one of those right now with, all new, brand new caps. So the main thing to worry about is space management. But besides that, I think we're sitting pretty right here. Once I get that done, I'll bring it up on the Variac and see where it takes us. I'm just going to try to follow the schematic as best I can. And I think there's a couple more iffy caps that I'm going to replace. And I'll measure the resistors on like the bias circuit and really important stuff like that. But beside that, I'm just going to just waiting for some EL34 power tubes, and then I think I'm going to go let her rip. So, I'll see you guys pretty soon. So, I think I'm just going to cut this idea period, because all of these right here are measuring like between 35 and 38 ohms. And I'm going to check this on my ESR reader. But I think that these are good to go if they don't read like absurdly high. I think I'm just going to leave those and I'll just replace the filter caps because I really don't want to mess with this. I just never want to mess with things I don't fully understand, and I don't understand what this circuit is. It looks to me like some sort of thing that bleeds off ground, but it's not a filter cap because it occurs at like multiple stages across the amp from like the power amp to the preamp. So I'm just going to leave it like it is, just hope that everything is fine. And I'm just going to focus on the filter caps for now. If there's excessive noise, I'll come back in later and work on that. Yeah, so these are actually running at like 0.3 ohms for both of them. Which, I mean, as you can see here, we're running between 22 and 47 UF at 350 volts. So, I mean, that's like, man, I mean, that's really low. So I think we're just going to keep it like this. Yeah, I'm happy that I made that measurement instead of just putting in the new parts, because it would have been tough and a waste of money. Well, I guess it's already a waste of money considering that I made this abomination, but would have been a waste of time at least. Okay, so after all of the wiring, I think it's finally ready. I've left this cap in just because there was no need to change it. It's not messing with anything. The connections to it are just bleeding off to that ground lug right there. Just one from there and one from that point with bias cap and the HT fuse. So basically what we're doing, okay, I've actually got to solder those two in, but basically it comes from the power transformer, hits the diodes, diodes push together, it runs into the first filter cap stage, bleeds off to ground. The filtered stuff is going through this black cable right here into the choke up through there. The red cable, this one right here, the red cable is coming over here. That's the other side of the choke. This again bleeds off to ground, and I had these both connected right here. It's not my finest work, but they are connected and they will do fine. Now, after it is finished with this stage, it goes down into this section, hits all of these things, which just are mostly ground, but we want to focus on the blue wire. Blue wire takes us up here, goes to there, hits that tube socket, and that is as far as I want to go. So I'm just going to measure the voltage throughout here. I'm going to start at low voltages like 10 on the variac, and I will just see where this takes us. I really, really don't want to blow any of these caps, and I feel at 10 volts, even like a mistake will be fine. And if I get a mistake, that'll just help me to see where it went wrong. I am going to secure the terminal strips more securely later. It's just I want to make, okay, so basically there are no ground connections there. It is not imperative that those be ground connections. All the ground connections are external onto a lug, so I can like put a layer of epoxy without them touching the chassis and it'll be fine. They're not going anywhere, and it's not necessary for them to be grounded because they don't have connectivity with anywhere else on the board, so I don't have to solder them down. But I just want to keep them kind of floating in limbo for a little while, just so if I have to make changes, it won't be like this is a permanent fixture. Once it is ready, I will do epoxy or super glue or something, or solder one point down, super glue the other. I'll figure out something. But for now, I just want to make absolutely sure that this is going to be fine. And I have no reason to suspect that it will not be fine. Everything looks, for the most part, fine. I'm not proud of some of my work here, and I wish I'd done better. This part in particular, I feel like there's too much stress on that resistor hitting the ground lug. But for now, it will do. It's fine for now. There's no issues. I don't think there's any ground problems anywhere. And I'm just gonna run in with a bunch of heat shrink, and I will make everything a lot safer. I just want to check what this is going to put out. If the power is going to be fine, great. I'll do the finishing touches, and I'll just start running up and down the chassis, putting in tubes, and just seeing where we go. So, turn this off for a second. I'll get the variac, and I'll be back in just a second. So I got these soldered in, and now for the moment of truth. Oh shoot, I should actually probably just tell you the readings later instead of doing this like with the camera in one hand and the multimeter in the other. So, Okay, I think I made a mistake with regards to the power supply. As you can maybe see, I can't tell if you can actually see it, but I have a bus wire running between the resistor and the filter cap right there. So basically, these two are connected. And I'm actually not sure how I'm supposed to go about doing this, but the resistor is supposed to be, you know, resisting and all that, and it is not. So I think that I'm gonna have to, I mean, this is just tough because I have to have them connected, but I have to have the stuff hit the resistor and bleed off to ground, and then hit the capacitor. But it's not wanting to do that. And as it's going right now, it's running at 360 volts at a point where it should be, well, it's theoretically running at 360 volts because I had it set up to 55 on the Variac, which is half of 110, which is the technical input. So it should be reading, and I have it set up for the 125 section. So, I mean, it should be reading 145 and it's reading around 180. So I'm going to need to get this worked on for a little while. But on the plus side, at least something is working right. And other than like, I don't know, I think that this won't be too bad of a fix. I think I can get this done pretty well, but we will just see. And I will get back to you guys as soon as I've figured out a workaround for this. Alright, I've installed the filter caps. They're working great. I've tested these and the ESR is fine, as I've said earlier, so these should be good to go. I've just gone all the way up here, done a spot check, and so previously I had installed 3 tubes, these 3 right here, and all the power tubes, which are just JJ Marshall branded ones, and the 12AX7s are a bunch of, you know, garbage ones I had around because 12AX7s really don't go bad in my experience, although, you know, I'll bet that many people would say that that's an idiotic experience. But I have never had a 12AX7 go bad. So I'm just assuming that these are good. Well, that's not true actually. In the other Selmer I was working on, I did have one go bad, but that one had been like 40 years old and these ones are all newer-ish. Anyway, so this purple wire right up here that you're seeing, that was pulled straight out of the socket, and after some looking at the schematic I figured out that, you know, it goes to that pin. And then I thought, I thought that there were only 3 12AX7s. So yep, tucked behind the transformer is another one. So I put that one in. And I think that we're gonna see how this turns out pretty soon. Yeah, I think I'm going to go fire this on. Put a, oh, I also forgot to say, it wasn't turning on, so I kind of panicked and I tested all the leads of the output transformer. It's working fine, so the power and the output transformers are both good. So that just leaves us with the pots as a potential failure source, and besides, I mean the pots and the switches. Beside that, I think that we should be good to go. So I'm just going to go fire it up, see if it turns on, and I'm hoping I can get it to pass a signal. I'll see you guys. Alright guys, I'm like through the roof right now. Looks ugly, it's beat up, but it works. First full restoration I've done on one of these amps, and So I can hear like a minor, like extremely small noise coming out of the speaker. I'm not talking about my guitar signal, I'm talking about like hum, or yeah, in this case, a little bit of crackle. But I think I'm just going to go get in there with the pots and switches and jacks, and then it should be working fine. I'm so happy about this. Okay, well, I'm going to go do a playing demo right now, and I'll be back in just a second. Sounds like a lot of the trebles with the presence pot. Okay, so presence pot sounds like a lot of it. I think I'm gonna go check the preamp tubes real quick. But it's making sound, it's powering on. There's a little bit of crackle, but that is completely fine by me.